Hey everyone, quite a few people have asked me to make a video tutorial on how I make my hoodie on a silver reed LK-150. Now this is a mid-gauge machine. I haven't used any extensions or anything. It's very simple to make. I'm using a double knit wool. I'm using the machine on tension 4. Row counter is set to 0 as always to start off. Now for my size, I am doing a size 12-14. Got a little bit of Christmas gut going on. Sorry, bad joke. So for my particular size, I'm doing 45-45. That's 45 needles either side of 0. Now this is my first video. If it's any good, I'll make others. But let's see how this first one goes. So I'm using a double knit wool, tension 4, 45 or 45 stitches either side of the 0, and the wool I am using is Amelia, and this wool is actually from Wilkinson's. It's a cake multi, and the colour is, where's the colour? Cream mix. It's a nice little colour. It's a nice shade. I don't know how well the camera will pick up these colours. If these videos take off and it works, then sure, I'll make another one. But my plan is to record this straight through, and then I'm going to go through it in editing. So let's get started. So let's thread the machine up with our Amelia. That's threaded up. Now we want a loose cast on. Now I like the basic every other needle cast on, which is how I've set it up. If you can do a loose e-cast on, whichever works for you, whichever you're more comfortable with, as long as it's loose, because it's got to get around your stomach. This will be the base band. So just like that, I have cast it on. Now we're just going to bring all the stitches back into work here. Every single little needle is coming back into work. 45 and 45. Now don't forget your cast on combs, weights, whatever you need to stop your stitches from falling off. I like these little combs that come with the machine. This is I'm just using the bog standard machine setup here from what I got from Hobbycraft. So you can pretty much make this straight out of the box. You don't need any extras, any lace carriages or anything. You just need this bog standard machine. So I have counted that as one line because that's my cast on. But now we're going to do a rib. But I don't have a rib machine. And if you're like me and you've just bought this machine, then you don't have the rib either. So I'm going to do what I would like to call a mock rib with a Picot Edging. So what we're going to do is we're going to knit 12 lines, just 12 lines straight, left, right. You've already done one. Easy enough. So let's get 12 lines done. So that's 2. If you're using your row counter, you won't need to count. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Right, so that's the main bit of your rib. I'm sorry with the camera angle you can't see the work, but that is 12 rows. Basic 12 row setup here. So I will lift it forward to show you what I've done as I'm going. So what we are going to do now is we're going to create the Picot Edging, which I really like. It gives it a nice visual effect. So we're just going to take every other stitch, every other needle, and transfer it onto the next one. Now what this is going to create is a little hole. Quite often used for buttonholes. I suppose if you're using your knitting needles, this would class as knit two together, yarn over. So we're basically doing a knit two together yarn over by putting every other stitch on the next needle. Quite simple, this bit. And you're going to do this to every single stitch till you get to the end. Now if you've got a multi-transfer tool, which I need to get one for this machine, it's basically like this, apart from you can adjust it so one of the needles will retract in. They are absolutely great because you can do more than one at a time, but as I'm working pretty much straight out the box, I don't have one. I should go on eBay and get one. I need to buy one of those. I would say this project takes roughly about 4 hours, not including sew up time. I'm going to go off camera for the next little bit, but don't worry, I'm still with you. We're just taking every other needle and transferring the stitch to the next one, so then you've got 2 stitches on each needle. So aside from machine knitting, I hand knit and I crochet. I bought this so it's easier to make garments for the homeless, for the neonatal. It's honestly been a godsend. I love my Brother KH881, but it struggles a bit with the double knit. This one does double knit just fine. And it does chunky. If you do every other needle, I drop my stitch, no problem. Pop it back on, there we go. Sorry you can't see me because I'm sort of working off the camera now. I mean, if I get a good enough follow on this, then okay, I'll look into a more permanent setup where I can move the camera down. But yeah, I do neonatal, ward, homeless, you name it, I've probably knitted for them. Or at least attempted to. Right, so we need to put all these back into working position. So you've knitted on every other stitch, and now you're just going to knit a further 12 lines. I recommend at this point resetting your row counter to 00, because after this we're going for the full 200 lines to make the front half of the jumper, well, hoodie. This one's a hoodie, but it's also my jumper pattern. The only difference is I've added a hood to it. So we're just going to knit 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now if you want a smaller rib, do a smaller rib. I prefer the longer ribs. You are going to take your weights off now because we need to get to these bottom stitches. These loose stitches at the bottom, the reason why I said to keep it loose. At the bottom you'll notice these big loops from where you cast on. That's absolutely fine because what we're going to do now is we are going to put our transfer tool in just to one of these loops and hook it up to the corresponding needle. Now you're only going to do this to every other one. It will make the machine, it will make life easier for the machine. It can jam up if you go for every 2. So just do every other one. The way I'm doing it is I've cast up that one, I've got 2 stitches here, so I'm taking from the line here. The other reason why I'm also taking from the line like this rather than the actual stitches is I can tighten it from the cast on tail if I choose to. So maybe this loose cast on is the one for you. You can tighten it, loosen it, make it fit how you want it to fit. Doesn't have to be perfect if it's your first one. I didn't follow a pattern when I first did this top. I did it out of my own head. So as far as I know, I've made my first original pattern and I'm sharing it with the world. That's actually an accomplishment from when I was 8 years old and messing around with knitting needles with my nan. So I'd say I've come a long way. So yeah, we're just casting up every other one from the last stitch. I'm keeping it on tension for all the way throughout this garment. If you want to add it more shape to it, then by all means change it up, see what works for you. You can always do a test one and undo it later. It's your jumper, you do it your way. When I get to the we will be putting a hood on this jumper, and that'll be at the end. We're basically going to leave the neckline completely unfinished, so it's going to be a raw edge. Going off camera again. So the neckline will be a complete raw edge, which we will then sew a box onto, which will make your head. And yes, I am calling everyone a box head. Sorry! Content creators gives you the right to insult people with your craft. So, every other stitch has 2 stitches on. The middle stitch has its original stitch on. So all we've done is we've casted up the bottom line. And that gives it a welt. The Picot edging that I was on about, it leaves this nice little bit here, like a knobbly bit. That gives it a nice edge, so it doesn't look like that raw edge that's going to curl up at any moment. It gives it a little weight. Talking about weight, let's put our weights back on. If you'd rather use claw weights, use them. I prefer the cast on combs because it's more even for me. Now, all we are going to do, this is basically the front complete, believe it or not. No, this is the back. I do it from the back first. That's twice I've said that. Sorry for the confusion. The back is done first, the front is done second. So, yeah. This is basically the back done. All you have to do now is knit to 200 lines. The first one will feel a bit rigid. Now, as I like to count the welt as the first 12 lines, I'm doing 200 lines from the 12 lines. But if you want it that bit longer, add a few extra lines on it. You know, your hoodie, do it your way. Your jumper, your hoodie, your clothing. So 200 lines. I'm going to pause here while I do the 200 lines, and we will get back to you, and you can pause it, maybe come back to me. Otherwise it'll be a 4-hour long video and someone will end up killing me. See you in a few minutes. Okay, so we are back. I've done 200 lines, which is to the base. This will be your back. Despite what I was saying earlier, get my back and front confused. We have got our Picot edging with a nice tidy hemline up, and that's the back done with the 200 lines following. If you want it longer, add more lines on it. I've only got a small torso, so do whatever's right for you. So what we need to do next is we need to make a neck hole. I mean, what's the point of making a top if you haven't got a place to put your head through? I'm just saying, that's like totally the whole point of it. And I've pretty much made this top in one piece. It just makes life easier. Making it in one piece, it's less sewing up, etc, etc. So you're going to need a form of a tapestry needle or a bobbin needle. Just something that you can get some wool through. Because I've done a very easy cast off with this. So easy, you're going to think that's never going to hold. And the reason why I've done such a loose, easy cast off is you're going to want it to stretch. You're putting a hood on top of it. You need it to stretch. It has to stretch. Now, for the neck hole, because we've got nowhere near the hood yet, we're at the neck hole. You want to cast off 20 of 20 either side of the zero. Again, I apologise that my camera is still not centred. Let's fix this a little bit. So 20, you can just about see my finger, of 20. Move it a bit further over. First world problems. 20 of 20 either side. We're going to take that off. That will be enough space for your head. So come on people, let's get that off. I am putting it onto some scrap wool or spare wool. It's not necessarily going to be scrap because these are going to stay on. This is going to be part of it. Now you can either use the double eyelet tool, which does not come out of the box. If you haven't got that, you can use a simple needle. Just put it under, take the stitch off. And you want these stitches to go back. You don't want these to be worked. But you're just taking your stitches off at the moment. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Apologies if not. I will try and make the next video, if there is a next video, better. I mean, I've noticed that most knitting machines tutorials, they have the video in front of the machine rather than suspended in midair. But I've got no way of putting it in front at the moment. Maybe I need to invest in a camera that's wireless. Or use my mobile phone, but I dread to think the quality of it on my mobile phone. So let's just get all these stitches taken off. So far I've taken 10 off. Again, we are taking 20 of 20. This way it remains even. You've got a nice big hole for your head. This is also how I make most of my jumpers. The only difference is I've added a hood. So if I was making a jumper right now, I would cast these back on later and then do a short 6-row Picot Edging rib again like I did for the base, 6 instead of 12, and that would border it off and I'd have a nice v-neck cardigan. But I want another hoodie. I'm tired of making them. Right, I've got to the 0, so we need to cast off another 20. I mean, if you've got another way that's easier to cast off for you, that works for you, then do it that way. But just remember, you want it loose. You want it to be able to stretch a little bit. You've got to be able to get your head through this. Not that you've got a big head, but you want to be able to get your head through it. And if you're like me, you get dressed, you put your glasses on, you realise you're a bit chilly, you want to wear your hoodie, your glasses are on, you have to take them off. That's effort. So, to keep the glasses on, slightly bigger head. This will all make sense later, I promise you. Almost there, people. Almost got to the other 20 mark. Right, we have officially cast off 20 of 20. We want all of them stitches in the non-working position right at the back. Because now what we are going to do, these two pieces here, by the way, they can just hang. You can use them later for sewing up, so you're securing the stitches in. But at the moment, we are just going to also work on the one side. So pick a side, we're going to work on it. Let's work on that side. My machine's on that side, the wool's on that side. As we are working on the one side, we are pulling these forward into the hold position. So we've got these ones at the back not in work, these ones in hold, and our working stitches all the way over here. So this is going to be the first little bit, half of our front. We want to create a V. Our box is going to have 3 sides. So we want 3 sides to attach the box to. That is how the V is going to work. Now I'm not counting rows at this point because I'm counting increase. We are going to increase every other row. So we're doing 1 line, increase. We go back, we come back, we increase. So we're only increasing on the centre on this side when the machine is on this side. So we're doing 1, 2, increase, 1, 2, increase. Now there's a reason why I'm not mentioning line counts here, because the other side is going to count our lines for us. But at the moment this machine is not even touching the row counter. So 1, 2, increase, 1, 2, increase. And we're going to do this all the way until we have our increase touching the 0. So you're doing increase, 1, 2, increase, 1, 2. If you find that your machine is not holding the stitches or it's skipping some, put your weight on. Do not forget your weights. Your weights can be your friend. But I'm actually holding this as I go, as you probably noticed, so I'm fine. 1, well, I say I'm fine, but the machine says, nuh-uh. I think I just came back too early there. That is my fault. These things happen. La-di-da. So we're just going to slowly ease that off. How to fix a jammed carriage. Slowly pull it off, rock it back and forth, undo the few stitches where you had the problem, pull all the stitches back, be careful not to lose the stitches off there. Make sure all the stitches you want in working position are still in working position, everything's still in the right place. Increase. 1, 2, increase, 1, 2, increase. And like I said, we're just going to repeat this same pattern all the way till we get to 0. It's a nice sharp V-neck. I actually had one person turn around to me at knitting group and say, can you make me a jumper without the edging on? Which is fine, it's what she wanted, so that's what I gave her. I think her plan was to crochet around the edges. to give it a nice after thing on it, so she could add her own personal touch. Not increasing there, sorry. 2, increase. 1, 2, increase. 1, 2, increase. 1, 2. Guess what we're going to do now? Increase. And we are doing this all the way to 0. Now we're not actually going to go over 0, we are stopping at 0. So what we are going to do here is we are going to quite simply snip the wool, hopefully with your scissors that work. I'm sorry, I literally grabbed the first pair of scissors that came to me. Right, so now we are going to work on the other side. We've got this triangle bit here, which will meet up back in the middle. If you forget the 0, just make the stitch at the end. No one will notice. You're going to sew over it, no one will notice. Shh. So, you've got these loops here which will help you sew on as well. That's why I've choose just a standard increase like that. And we're going to move back onto this side. So let's move the camera back over here, and we're going to increase now on this side. These stitches over here that we've worked, we are now going to pull forward into the holding position, all of them. 45 to 0, go in hold. Now everything that we did on that side, we are now going to repeat on this side. Big tip of the day. Don't forget to refresh your machine after cutting it. You need to put these back into working position. Now on this side of the machine, you can set your machine back to 0. Because now this machine on this side will count the rows that you need. You want to get to 200 so it's the same length as the back, or whatever length you did. Again, you are going to increase on the middle, so increase. 1, 2, increase. Same as the other side. If you feel like your tension's dropped, it's because your wool's fallen out of the wheel. There we go. Increase. 1, 2. Increase. 1, 2. So, this is pretty much all we're doing for the verse. And I am about to find out how many lines this increases, because I don't actually write this bit down. Right, so if anyone was wondering, it's 40 lines either side. Or at least that's what the machine says. So now we're just going to put all the stitches back into working position, as we have got both of our centres into 0. They are both in 0. We have closed the gap back up. We have a nice triangular space for your head. If you want to check that it fits, crawl under that machine, stick your head up and say, "Hi!" I so need to edit that out. So you've got your picot edging, you've got your back done, you've got your neck hole. Next thing you're going to do is knit 200 lines. So very simple one. You're just going to take the machine back and forth until your row counter says 200. And I didn't say how many balls of wool this takes. This takes about 6 balls of wool, I think. Yes, this takes about 6 balls of wool. I'm on my second ball of wool. I'll probably be on my third ball of wool by the time I come back to you. But yes, you have the neck hole, you have your picot edging, you have the back done. Let's finish with the front. See you all in 200 lines. Okay, so I've done 200 lines. I've got the picot edging at the front, just to recap. We've got the neck hole. Nice big neck hole where you can pop your head up and say hi. Just to check that it fits. Now that you've done your 200 lines, we need to do the picot edging again, which is basically what we did at the start. So we want this edging again, with this lovely turn up. I mean, it's beautiful edging. It holds the work down. It fits nicely. So to do that again, all we're doing is taking every other stitch and putting it on the next needle. Again, in hand knitting terms, it's knit 2 together, yarn over. But in machine knitting terms, you're just transferring every other stitch onto the next stitch. So you're just taking the stitch and popping it on next to its neighbour. And you're doing this all the way across again for the whole 45 stitches. All the way. Now, when you've done this, you've got 2 options. You can either edge it up on your machine, or you can sew it up by hand later. I quite honestly find it easier to sew it up later when I'm doing the seam. That is personal choice. It's whatever works for you, quite honestly. I just find it easier to do it by hand. Nice little tuck stitch. It hides it perfectly. I know the tension's right. I know it's not going to pull too tight. But whichever way you want to cast it off, sew it up to you. Again, your garment. You do it your way. That's the whole reason why we got a knitting machine, right? So we can make our own clothes rather than going to the stores and buying them. Especially at the moment when we're in a pandemic. Woohoo! Masks and hand sanitizer, everyone. Face, hands and masks. Please, seriously. I work in retail. Please wear your masks. Please. I have to go to work and risk my life and my family's life. It's the least you could do. I mean, please. Okay, so we have done that on all the needles, transferred everyone over. You need to make sure all your needles are back in working position. And we are going to knit 12 more lines. Because at the start, if you remember, we did 12 lines, zeroed the counter, transferred every other stitch, knitted 200 lines. Yes, we did stop at 12 to do the cast on to make the hem, but we still did 200 lines from the peacock, which is what we're doing now. So we've done the 200 lines with the short rowing for the neck, and now we're going to do 12 lines, so it's the end of the peacock. And as I said, I will probably be on my third ball of wool by the time I get back to this video. I was wrong. I'll be on my fourth. in the middle of this video. So what I do is, I'm a bit lazy when it comes to this. It works for me. Maybe it's just luck. I just tie them together and the machine feeds it through. How I normally tie my wool together is I do the invisible stitch basically. It works for me. So I do a single knot this side so it slips, and then on this side I do another single knot. Sorry, I'm all fingers and thumbs. So just another single knot. Pull them together. Just pull them, and they're stuck like that. Trim the edges off, and you've just joined your wool together perfectly with no seams. Then all your machine has got to do is feed it through. Be patient with your machine if you're going to feed knots through it. It doesn't like it, so just give it a little bit of love. Our craft is what is keeping us sane. So I've done 3 lines so far. I need to get to 12. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now, if you want to do it as I do it and sew it up at the end, then this is where you need to follow me. If, however, you want to do it the other way around, like I spoke of, all you need to do is count your 12 lines back, add your stitch on every other one to the hooks, and then knit 2 lines, then cast it off. Loose cast off though, because you still want it to be stretchy, but I prefer sewing it on at the end, so that's what I'm going to do. If you want to sew it on the end like me, now's the time to start following. So you want quite a bit of wool, so that you've got a bit to sew up and a bit to cast off on. Excuse me, Silvery, can I have my wool back? Thank you. Just thread your needle through. This is the one that comes with the kit. I finally found it. I had it in a pair of gloves. And all you're going to do, quite simply, is I find it easier to bring all the needles forward. That way I can pull them off as I'm going and there's no accidents. So you're just going to take your shag needle, put it in the stitch and pull it off. And you're going to repeat this for every single stitch. And like I said, later on, we're just going to sew this up to the edge so that it folds in half prettily. Prettily? That is now a word. I am making this a word. I will add it to the Urban Dictionary along with a few other words that I have probably said. When you're crafting, you don't actually pay attention to what you're saying. You just say words. Sometimes they make sense. So if I said anything that doesn't make any sense, please feel free to comment. I will try and explain it in the comments. I'll be like, huh? What word was I trying to say? Don't be as brave as me. You don't have to put so many needles, so many stitches on your needle. You can do it one at a time. I'm trying to do this for speed. Because imagine if I was pulling through all the stitches singularly. we're going to do this all the way across the needle bed, because this is your front and back done. I know you're all watching for the hood, not just for the jumper itself, but I have to make the jumper before I can put a hood on it. Sorry, oh, you split the wool, the stitch isn't going on the needle. This can happen. There we go, I got it. I am past the 0 and heading towards the 10 mark. Sorry, casting off is the most boring bit, I am aware of this, but we all have to do it. And I know you all joined for the hood, but we're going to do the sleeves next. I'm saving the best bit till last. I mean, what's a jumper without sleeves? Everyone who's watching this is probably like, yeah, I prefer raglan, or I want to work it in 4 parts rather than 3. That's completely up to you. You do your jumper your way. Oh, and if you want to make it a cardigan hoodie rather than a jumper hoodie, instead of rejoining the 2 sides at 0, don't. And you can always add the picot edging on the end as well, so that way it's more of a cardigan hoodie. You can make it diverse that way. Right, so that's all the stitches taken off. So what I'm going to do next is the sleeves. Now for the sleeves, for me, I do 40 of 40. So we are going to recast the garment on through 40 stitches of 40 on the sides. Let's put my needle somewhere safe so I don't lose it again. Thank you, very glad. But here we have our unfinished picot edging, which we will sew up when we come to doing the sew ups. So when we sew the arms up, we'll just make a little diversion and go all the way along here. We have got our back with the finished picot edging and our neck hole. Now I know this isn't going to be looking like much at the moment, but for giggles, let's wear an unfinished garment. This feels more like a pinafore at the moment. I don't want to move the camera because you'll move it, you'll lose it. So you'll just have to take it for granted that it's on, that I'm trying it on, then I'm putting it round. Stomach. So that's quite fine for me because it meets in the middle. Again, if you want it a bit wider, you know what to do. Add more stitches, change your tension. Okay, for the sleeves, we are going to cast it on. We want the pearl side, the pretty side, the outside, to face inwards. And we want the rough working nasty side that we normally hide from everyone to face outwards. To do the sleeves, I generally put the neck opening on the 0, 0, the start of the triangle, where we first cast off the 20 stitches. I want that on the 0, 0, the lining of it. So let's put this here a second so I can show you what I'm talking about here. So here's our neck opening. There's the flat line where we did the rough cast off. Follow the stitch line, which is going to be around here, and that's what we want on the 0, 0. So So we're just going to hook that straight on there. Now all we're going to do for either side is we're going to get our hooky tool. Try not to do that for too long, by the way, it bends your needle. Of course, they're all closed. That's better, now they're all open. For those of you that don't know your machine, there is magnets underneath the LK-150 that will automatically open all the stitches for you. So just run it across, they'll be open. Okay, so we're hanging that little area that I told you about on the 00. And we are going to cast on from the side every other needle. Make sure it's every other needle. Your machine is going to have a hard time with this as it is, and you want to cast on 240. And this will be your sleeve. Like I said, I'm saving the hood for last because I think that's the main thing that people want to know about on this. Oh, these sleeves as well, you are going to do 2 of them. They are going to be identical, hopefully. Unless it's going to be that jumper that your nan knitted for you once, where one sleeve was up here and the other sleeve was down there. You know, when your nan first learnt how to knit and she just made everything and she ran out of wool. We've all had that jumper. So every other stitch we're just casting on the very last or first stitch, depending on your perception of it, of each line. And this just saves you sewing the sleeves on earlier. Let's put it this way, we all got a knitting machine because it would be quick. So we've done 40 on this side. We're now going to do 40 on the other side. So follow me to the other side of the bed. Sorry, I am not insane. I'm just crazy. And because I know I'm crazy, I'm not insane. Because if I didn't know I was crazy, I'd be insane. So just casting on. Now I find this to be the simplest sleeve I've found yet. I love this sleeve. It gathers at the bottom. It's cute. It's sweet. You have the arm room. Because let's put it this way, we all love arm room in our jumpers. That's the first thing we look for. We want to feel like we can move our arms. Okay, that's our cast on done. So put all our stitches back into our working position. Set your row counter to 0. Refresh your machine after cutting the wool for the base. And all we're going to do is we're going to knit 150 lines. Just straight, no shaping until we get to 150. Basic enough, right? Now this is why I said every other stitch. It is going to be stiff going across, but if any luck, it will come out nice. It will just swim across like that, and we're going forward. So on our 4th ball of wool, we are on our 4th sleeve. On our 4th sleeve, oh my god, why would we be on our 4th sleeve? We're on our 4th ball of wool and our 1st sleeve, knitting 150 lines, and I will see you in 150 lines and let you know what to do next. Bye! Okay, so what I've started doing here now is I've knitted the 150 lines. So what we need to do is we need to do a major decrease for the wrists, which I've slowly started doing. I've got a double-ended needle. most people know them as sock needles. You can use circular needles, whatever you want to use, whatever's handy. Or you can do it the first way I did it, which is a pain in the backside, but it gets it done. Which is transfer to every stitch and then slowly move each stitch in without stretching the garment. It's a pain in the butt. But what we are going to do is we are going to take all the stitches off essentially. And you will see why. Because we are going to do a major decrease for the wrist. That way you've got that fluffy bit, like, you know, that fluffy bit that some garments have, like the Juliet look, like where my wrist is, and it sort of like puffs out as it goes up the arm. That's how I'm doing this jumper. I find that it's warmer. It's a harsh decrease, but it's worth it. So I'm just taking off every single stitch that I've got. If you're feeling lucky, you can just take them all off without having something to hold them and hope that you don't lose any, if you're feeling lucky. But I always tend to drop stitches that way. Another way of doing it would be waste yarn. If you do a few lines of your waste yarn and then pick your stitches back up from that, that way is perfectly acceptable as well. I prefer it this way because my waste yarn tends to get caught in it. It's probably just the wool that I use. So taking off every single stitch. Almost there. I apologise that I started this before I started the video, but I'm here now. I'm back with you. Now what we are going to do is we're going to put 2 stitches onto every single needle. So it was 40 of 40. In that theory, we are now going down to 20 of 20 on both sides. Again, if all your needles have closed up, just do what I said earlier, which is run the machine with no wool in it and now automatically reopen. So we've done 150 lines. That is what is hanging from the neck. So the neck's all the way down here and this is the sleeve. And we are just going to add these stitches back on. The reason why I use a double-ended needle is I prefer to take them off and put them on in the same direction I'm going. Use your eye tool because that'll be easier. You're just grabbing the stitch and looping it back on. 2 stitches onto each needle. So 40 of 40 becomes 20 of 20. Yes, it is that simple. Easier said than done. So even then I still dropped a stitch. Once you get in the rhythm of it, you'll be fine. Because rhythm is a dancer. Probably help if I held it that way. There we go, that was better. So all you're doing is taking 1, 2 off and putting them onto there. 1, 2 off onto the next one. Again taking 1, 2 off, putting them on. The way I used to decrease before I was doing this was I decreased slowly down to the 20. If you want to do it that way, again, it's entirely your jumper. Your jumper, your style, your way. Yeah, it's got to look better than some of the catwalk stuff, right? Right. Why am I expecting answers? Why do I expect answers when I am talking to myself and recording myself talking to myself? You know, back in the day, if you were talking to yourself, they'd commit you without any question. And yet we're doing it all the time. We talk to ourselves. You see someone walking around with a Bluetooth talking to themselves. You don't know if they've got a Bluetooth device on the side of their head or if they're just insane. You can't tell which it is anymore. And it's like, yeah, okay, you're on the phone. Sorry. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. So again, I'm just taking 2 stitches off my holding needle and sticking them on. A knitting needle will do the same thing. If you haven't got those in, like I said, you can put it onto some waste yarn and do it that way. Whichever is easier for you. Still going with this. Okay, a little giggle while we're going ahead. Let's tell a checkout story. So I'm sitting at the checkouts and I'm serving the customers and just having a general discussion. I notice they have a leak on the conveyor belt, as in L-E-A-K, the food. I hope that's the right way around. So I give them a leak. I watch them pick it up and they put it in their shopping bag. And you know, straight away, the first thing I do is say, oh, be careful with that bag, you've got a leak in it. As in L-E-E-K. They take the leak out and they have a look at the bag to see if there's a hole. They then realise what I said. They are in utter disbelief that they fell for it and burst out laughing. We need some comedy during all this. I just happen to be the comic relief on the tills, which is kind of funny. Even one turned around to me and said, I can't believe I fell for that. I'm normally the one that tells these jokes. And his wife just burst out laughing. It was like, oh my God, you fell for that. You even took it out and checked the bag. And he was like, yeah, I get it. I fell for it. I fell for it. Yeah, you fell for it. You fell pretty hard. It's these little things that take our mind off the harsh reality outside of the world for 2 minutes. So whatever you do, wherever you are, keeping safe, have a laugh. I know it's hard to laugh at a dismal situation in a dark world where we don't know what's going to happen for the next few years, but look at the bright side. The sun is still shining. You probably still have your health, otherwise you wouldn't be crafting. I can't imagine you knitting or crocheting or even machine knitting. If you're coughing your guts out and on a ventilator, unfortunately. So yeah, look at the bright side. At least you didn't put a leak in your bag and have me there. So I turned around to one of my staff members and I said, which would you rather eat? A brick or a matter baby? And they went, what? What would you rather eat, a brick or a matter baby? And of course they turn around to me and they say, what's the matter, baby? I'm absolutely fine, thank you. You okay? They walk away swearing at me. I love my work colleagues. I love work banter. And they should know me by now. So, we have just taken 44 of 44 and turned it into 20 of 20. So, we've done a major decrease. And what we're going to do now is, because we're at the wrist, that's the sleeve done, is we're going to knit 12 lines. Just 12 lines. Make sure all your needles are in working position, or that happens. If that happens, don't worry about it. You can either undo it or use a latch hook tool just to pull the working yarn over and pull it back through. Problem solved. For every mistake, there is a fix. 9 times out of 10. There we go. So that's one. Set your row counter back to 0 if you were using it, sorry. So if it was on 150, it should now be on 1. And we're just going to continue with 12 lines. So that's 2. Make sure your stitches are coming down and not sitting at the top. You have just done a major decrease. Your machine will need a little attention for that. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Then all we're going to do is the same that we did on the base, the same that we did for the front. We're going to do the picot edging again. So every other stitch, you're taking the needle and putting it on the previous needle. Just moving it on over. So it's quite quiet at work after everyone was done shopping, of course. After 8 o'clock it was quite quiet. So I called the security guard over and I said, "You come into the duck do later?" He's like, "Duck do?" "Yeah, you come into the duck do later. Everyone's going to be there." He said, No, I don't think I will." 20 minutes later he comes over and says, "What is a duck do?" And I went, "Quack, quack." He just walked away from me. He was like, "Right, I can't believe you got me on that. I shouldn't have come back to you." But at the same time, he was smiling. That's the start, right? So every other hook has now got 2 stitches. Pull them all back into their working positions, and you're going to knit 12 rows again. 4, 5, 6, 7. I didn't reset my row counter, so that's actually 6. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I didn't reset my row counter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Perfect. Then you can either cast it up and knit a couple of lines, or you're going to leave it to the sewing up. I'm going to leave it to the sewing up. So I'm going to cast off exactly the same way as I cast it off for the front. I'm just going to leave it hanging on the thread. Only because when I sew up, I will hook the stitches to the appropriate line. It will do the same job. It will also make it so I can alter the tension of my wrist to where I want it. Again, your top, do it your way. So this is sleeve 1 done. as soon as I'm done casting off and telling my bad jokes, let's leave it with the bad jokes actually. We've had enough of bad jokes. As soon as I'm done casting off, I'm going to pause this video and work on the other sleeve. And you're probably going to do the same thing, or you're going to forget to do the other sleeve completely and go straight to the hood, because that's the next thing you'll see. I will most likely take a photo of this before I do the hood, so you can see the shaping of it, and I'll probably edit that into the video somehow. But that's the sleeve cast off. When I do my sew up, which is what the long tail is for there, when I do my cast up, I will just fold that over and sew it to the decrease that we did back there, and that's your sleeve done. One sleeve. It's harmless enough. I'm sorry, I said no more bad jokes. So pardon the curling, it will curl, but that would be our sleeve with our edging and our neck hole. Time to do the other sleeve. Catch you after 120, no, 150, 60, 70. Catch you after 174 rows. 150. 12 times 224. Yeah. Catch you after 175 rows. That's what we're doing next. I'm going to end this video to save you from my bad jokes. You're welcome. Hey everyone. So, we've made our jumper. You got the back, you got the front, you got the sleeves. This is a jumper. We want to put a hood on it. Now, if I was just making a jumper, I would edge off these by doing the Picot Edging again. But we want a hood. So instead what we want to do is we want to bring the back up, bring the sides up, and we want to give it a lid. So you want to measure from approximately, my hair's in the way, from here to here. So you know the size. Now for me that's about 30 centimetres. You can give it a little bit of slack if you want, but you want a 30 centimetre length panel to come from the front and the back. 31 centimetres, 30 centimetres to about there. And then once you've done that, you're going to cast off the 20 stitches here, and you're going to continue to stitch forward for that length. It's as simple as that. So you need to measure from here to here, and then from here at the back to here, and then you've got your hood. Let's get started with that. And here's what it should look like. My little hood on my little mannequin. It's cute. It works. There you go, Mummy. Let's just stick the pin back in here, because you're a done piece. This is the first one I did. This is the one that got the attention. It's cute. It works. It's warm. We need it in this British weather. So let's get started. Okay everyone, we are back and we are doing the hood. If you are like me and you hate stitching up and you manage to leave, moving the board over so I can get there, and you manage to leave the end stitches on your worsted weight instead of casting them off, even if you didn't, just slip the stitches up, because this is going to be the start of our hood. We're going to use this as a base. We don't have to cast on. Make sure the right side again is facing away from you. So first thing we are going to do is we are just going to pick up these stitches and pop them back on. Now I'm not going to be too concerned about taking the holding yarn out because I've used the same colour yarn. If you are and you've used different yarn, yeah, that's fine. And no, this will not fall apart because I am going to hide that yarn inside. I'm going to use it for casting on either side. But this is just to continue on so it looks tidy. Hello. Right, let's not use the latch hook tool. I am struggling with the latch hook tool and I don't know why. Maybe it's because I've never had to use them before. You know, apart from carpet rug making. Do you do any other wall crafts apart from knitting? I mean, something would have led you up to this, whether it would have been crochet, knitting itself, maybe even rug making. Answer in the comments, when did you get your first knitting machine? I'm actually quite interested in this now. When did you get it? What inspires you? Oh, I probably should have said I'm casting this on in the centre 20 of 20 because I know that I casted off 20 of 20. So that's an easy way to know what to cast on for this bit. If I had a circular machine, I would be doing this straight up. I would just cast all the stitches. In fact, you can do this by hand if you want. You know, just stitch all the stitches on by hand. Cut pair of knitting needles the old-fashioned way, get your hands into the yarn. I know sometimes you have to do that. We like to feel the yarn in between our fingers again. So I've just reached the side of 0, putting the rest of these on. Now, if you remember from the neckline, it was 40 lines. So that means we did 20 cast-ons. So the easiest thing you can do is add on 20 stitches because that's what you're going to sew into those increase holes. But let's get these 20 stitches on first and then I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, that's your 20 of 20 cast on. Okay, so we've cast on our 20 stitches to the back. Again, we said it's going to be a square. So we want to cast on 20 stitches extra on either side. Again, I'm going to do this the lazy way, which is every other stitch. And we're just going to do this until we hit to 40. I do realise that that is not a perfect square, that it makes more of an oblong. And to cast on, I am using that wool that's holding the stitches. This is what will secure it in place, and I can use that for sewing up later. So again, cast on the 20 on the other side. I'm only doing the loose every other stitch. I did that side wrong. So I'm only doing the loose every other stitch because I don't want the hood so tight that I can't get my head through it. We need the headspace. That's actually a good app. Have you tried Headspace? I just lost my train of thought. So, in my opinion, every other stitch is cast on. You can use these bits later. These long tails that you used to take the first initial 20 off, you can use them for sewing. And that sewing will anchor the stitches down in place. So we are going to re-thread our machine up. You have your head measurements to hand. Mine was 31. I don't know how many lines that was, so you will need to double check to see the length. 31 centimeters, that is, sorry, not 31 lines. So let's thread the machine up. Machine be threaded. Pull your stitches back into your working positions. Don't forget to put your weights on. You won't need weights so much in the middle, but you will need them for the edge. The edge? The edge? What's an edge? You'll need them for the edge because you're basically knitting a new piece on those. So that gives you a rough idea of where I'm working. So I've cast on 40 of 40, excluding the 20 that 40 picked up. So you got 20. Maths just went out of my brain then. I feel stupid. So you got your 20 centre and then your extra stitches that you've cast on to 40. And we're just going to knit across until your work piece measures the size of your head. I don't know what just happened there, but something just happened. My machine didn't knit. Accidents happen. This proves that content creators also have issues. Yay. Someone commented in the machine knitting group actually. Why is it that people's wool seems to go through perfectly? Absolutely perfectly on the machines. Well, here's proof it doesn't. Sometimes things happen. Most people edit these out. I'm thinking of leaving this in to prove that the struggle is real, people. The struggle is real. There we go, that's better. Yeah, make sure your needles are in working position. Your machine is going to have a hard enough time getting through that, as you've just seen with me. So that was one line done. Omitting the little accident I had. And I want to go to 31 centimetres. 31 inches is going to be too big. Now, I'm not going to cut the video here because You're going to want to know what I do at this next point. Because to you at the moment, all I'm doing is I'm making an elongated collar, and it's probably confusing you. My wool is not staying in my machine because I've got a camera hanging over that's messing with my tension. If anyone has got a fix for easier recording, please, 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 let me know for next time. If you've done a test swatch, you know what the length that you'll get for 31. I don't. I haven't. I dropped a garter bar. I'm still going through with this. I will have this edited sometime this year. It's only got a long time to go. I did 70 stitches to make up 31 centimetres. $70 lines even. Right, let's double check that. I am on 45 lines. Just get it, you know your head measurements. I'm on 45 and that is at 16. Don't forget, when measuring on the bed, it is a little bit stretched out. It will contract back in. So you need to give it that extra little bit of length. Right, I am at 75 lines, and that is the right length for me. It's as simple as that. 75 lines, it's the right length for me. If you need yours a little bit longer, go a little bit longer. Take it to 90 if you want. In fact, excuse me, I feel like I need to end it on an even number, so I'm going to go to 80. It won't make that much of a difference. It will just give you a bit more space. But for the purposes, I am going to 80. Now, all you need to do is cast off cast it off, so all you've got left again is your 20 of 20. We're talking a loose cast off again. Loose because you don't want it to gather up, you don't want it to be stuffed at the edge, but that is the back and the sides of your head done. Just that little line in there. So then we need the top of the hood, which will be your head. So if you want to do a nice neat tidy seam where you catch stitches afterwards and you actually sew the stitches into the seam, you just want to do the very, very loose words, I can't speak today. You want to do the very, very loose cast off where you just grab all the stitches onto a needle again. Well, not all of them, only to the 20. And you want to do this on both sides. It's not corona, I've got wool down my throat. You know, you're crafting and the loose fibres go everywhere, they go up your nose, down your throat, then you start talking and then you realise you can't stop coughing. That happened. I actually feel like I want a deeper hood than this. When I say you do it your way, you do it your way. So instead of leaving 20 of 20 on, I'm leaving 15 of 15 on. So let's just take off another 5 stitches. And then we are going to do the same on the other side. So this is basically going to be the side of your face. There's no other way to explain it other than a three-sided box. And we're just going to do the same on the other side. Of the other side, I cut the yarn. So I'm not using scrap wool. I'm using wool that I'd normally sew up with. It stops it falling out on the one side, and you can sew up with this afterwards. There is one more piece after this to make for the hood. So that's 20 of 20 taken off. Sorry, 22, 20, yeah. There is one more piece that is made to attach onto the hood, and that's the edging. You make that separately and you sew it on at the end. So we'll get to that. Take them stitches back. So we've now got 15 and 15 on. Now the amount of rows you want to knit for this bit here would be so it matches the length of this, if you understand what I'm saying. Basically you want to create a flap where it ends here. at the end. So you want to just create a flap. Sounds easier said than done, doesn't it? So I did 80 lines to lead to the top of the crown. Let's see how many I do for the crown. I've set my row counter to 0 just so I can give you numbers. Again, I just do this all off the top of my head. I haven't had to actually learn lines. I just go for it. I know some of you are like, what? How do you do that? You just do it. How does an artist draw an apple? They see the apple, envision it, and just draw it. I see shapes, and I just make them. I know it probably sounds like I'll only ever be able to make block pieces that way, but it works. So I'm at 10 lines, still going 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, well 15 do. 15 will not do. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Will 30 do? 30 will do. In fact will do quite nicely. But again, if you've used a different measurement to me, you sort of need to, this one's a trial and error one. It's a hood. It fits your head or whoever you're making it for. So we're just going to cast these stitches off. I'm going to do this loose again because, yeah, again, this is not going to be a raw edge. I will be doing a band for it. Just casting all these off. Do 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 beep 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 beep. There we go. Now in your mind you're probably thinking you've just put Tetris block on top of the neck. You're right, I have. You're welcome. I'm a Tetris fan. Right, so what I'm going to leave you with right now, and we'll get back to you, is we are going to sew this bit up where we did our cast on down to the neck opening. Same with the other side, the cast on down to the start of the V-neck, the neck opening itself. I need more hands. So that creates your neck collar there. Then up here, this slappy panel, the one that we just made, the 30 lines, we're going to sew that to the edge there on both sides, and you've got your basic hood. And then we'll come back to you and we'll do the edging for the front. See you in a minute. Okay everyone, so this is how you make the I-cord. Now I'm quite happy with my jumper as it is. I've got it on at the moment. I'll show it to you better in a bit, but if you want an I-cord to put into the head bit so you can pull it tight, some people like that. I don't quite like the tassels. All you do is you cast on 4 stitches, set one of your levers to circle and 2, so it doesn't knit on the one side. That's the idea. You don't want it to knit on the one side, and you only want 4 stitches, and you're just going to go left and right and continue to the length you want it. This is going to be very short and sweet, just on 4 stitches. And if you remember those old Knitting Nancy dolls, it sort of makes that. That's your I-cord right there. It is a tube piece of knitting. The row that you are skipping, so I'm not having it knit going this way. That creates a second stitch, which creates tube. It's that simple. So you've actually got 4 stitches in a circle there. When you go back, it knits. When you come forward, it doesn't knit. And you can thread this through the inside of your hood. And yeah, that's your I-cord. It's as simple as that. Other than that, your hoodie is done. It is complete. All that's left for you to do is tidy it up, sew it up, and do what you need. I still need to do a bit of tidying on mine, but let's show you while I've got it on, shall we? I've been told that this doesn't look very good with pyjamas, but I'm not showing you my pyjamas. So I've sewn the top on. That's the ribbon, the last bit we did. Just sewn it around the edge. Here is your box hat. I have been toying with the idea about putting some ears on here. Look like my sister over there. Hi, Manny. Yeah, it comes down into the V-neck. You can sew that up if you want it round. You can have the I-cord going through so you can pull it tight. You can leave it loose. Your jumper, your way, you finish it off how you want it. You've got your ruffle sleeves on it. So yeah, it's quite a nice little hoodie. Few people wanted the pattern. There is your pattern. There is your jumper. All done. Your hoodie. You can be nice and warm. You can have the hood down. You can be one of the cool kids. Peace out.